All right, hey, thanks for checking out this week's Good Advice newsletter. I want to talk about something that is becoming pretty mainstream. It's been popping up quite a bit just in recent weeks. You may have heard of it. It's something called quietly quitting. Naturally, because I seem to have an opinion on all things management and leadership related, I've been reading about this and I do have an opinion on it. If you've been reading about it yourself and you're wondering what should I do with this, I want to address that today and give you some good advice for how you can best manage employees who are quietly quitting. Now, if you don't know what this term means, quietly quitting doesn't mean someone's actually quitting. It is the phrasing given to someone who has basically totally disengaged in their daily work, and they are doing the bare minimum, coasting along, basically waiting for that next better job to come along. Now, the way this has been portrayed in social media is that people who are quietly quitting are lazy, entitled. It seems like I can't get away from someone saying, "Oh, millennials, they're the worst," or Gen Zers, or what have you. And I want to be very clear about something. Whether someone quietly quits or not, whether you have an all-star employee versus someone who is extremely disengaged, you have to understand one simple truth, and that's that it totally relates to you as a leader. If your employees are amazing or terrible, you have to understand that you as the boss play a large role in that. Whenever I see posts about people who are quietly quitting and how it's so frustrating and how certain generations are challenging to work with, I always think to myself, it really says more about the boss than it does their employees. It's like a story I've told before. There was a woman I spoke to who had about a dozen employees who had all quit in the last year. Her entire team had quit in the last year. And she said, I've just found that millennials are really hard to hire these days. They're really hard to manage. And I said, in my experience, when your entire team quits, it's not millennials. Usually it's you. It's a tough truth for us to realize sometimes, especially if we are managing people in any extent. It's hard to realize that, how well my employees are doing directly corresponds with how well I'm leading them. So if you do have employees who are quietly quitting, who are disengaging, what that tells me is that you have not demonstrated value to them. People typically get engaged when they feel valued in their workplace. They typically get engaged when they see meaningfulness behind the work that they're doing, and most importantly, when their job isn't obnoxious to do. It's like when I was a high school teacher and I needed to print out homework for my students, but the printer never worked. And so what I found happening was that I would spend 2 to 3 hours just trying to print things, opening up the printer, getting paper gems out, until finally I just stopped printing stuff entirely. I actually got in trouble at one point because I wasn't printing out like extra copies of the homework for students who were absent. And I remember thinking, why am I doing this if it is so frustrating to do? See, all of these things go back to you as a boss and the resources you're simply providing for your team members. So if your employees are quietly quitting, spend less time being frustrated at them and more time being introspective. And most importantly, if you're still wondering where do you go from here, give me a call. Send me an email, blake@goodadvicecoaching.com. We'd love to help you. Great leaders don't have this problem, which should be a challenge for all of us. We'll have an episode on this on the podcast coming up tomorrow, and we'll also have an article on LinkedIn next week. Stay tuned. That's today's Good Advice. See ya.